states, West Virginia, South Carolina, and Ohio deployed members to the Capitol at the request of the Trump administration. It comes as part of President Trump's federal takeover that started 13 days ago. Joining us this morning to give us more context onto this step or about this step is political communications expert Dr. Casey Myers. He's also the director of graduate studies for the School of Communication at Virginia Tech. Good morning to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I want to first get into, how does the National Guard deployment really compare to past instances of federal intervention in D.C.? We're talking maybe the 1968 riots, the 2020 George Floyd protests. How does this all compare?
Well, this is similar but different in scope and different in the way that it's been approached. So this is a deployment under Title 32 of the U.S. Code, and it's also a deployment that is about law enforcement activity as opposed to a specific civil unrest. So if you go back to the 60s, where some of the protests that led to National Guard presence in the district, or in the 2020 protests that were going on, that was for a specific issue, not general law enforcement purposes. And so this is really a unique use of that power. It also dovetails with some of the unique status of the district being under federal control. Although it has local governance under the law, there is still kind of presidential control and federal control that allows the president to utilize this in a kind of a unique way. And what we're seeing play out here is, of course, kind of a legal question and also something that is going to be a political question coming up.
Yeah, and speaking of that, too, I mean, some people have spoken out, saying that these uniformed, sometimes armed troops are really being used as more of an intimidation tactic. What does it say that some feel that the use of these troops is really being politicized right now?
Well, I think anything like this is going to be highly political, just given the imagery of it. And as you mentioned, arming the troops and also the stationing of the troops is something that is a political question and also become, I think, very polarizing. One of the things that we've seen in the past is if you have a specific event, say a protest where National Guard is brought in, or a specific disaster where National Guard is brought in, it's to deal with that specific instance. This is different in that the deployment is in high kind of traffic areas, is a more generalized purpose. And so, of course, that gives a different kind of feel and different image, I think, to those who are in the district seeing this day to day. So, again, I think on both sides, it is a political issue. And depending on how you kind of view this, I think that you're going to see images of this used for political purposes on both sides.
Yeah. And I know this is a unique situation, but when we kind of look at, and compare it to past cases, are there any historical examples where the use of troops has backfired or maybe succeeded?
Well, certainly, if you look in the past, in the 1960s and 1970s, and also in the 2020s, where you had troops deployed, those became kind of flashpoints in history, and they became kind of defining moments in a particular era. With these deployments, I think that what you're seeing is something different, similar but different, in the sense that it is a more generalized purpose, and also a purpose that I think has really polarized the electorate. I would not be surprised to see this kind of image used in the 2026 midterm elections for both Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, we've got about 30 seconds left, but I do want to ask you, I mean, what is next year? What should we be looking out for? I know that there is talk of moving troops to Chicago and other cities, other states as well. So what should we be on the lookout for?
Well, that becomes a little bit more complicated because D.C. is a unique city, and the fact that it has this federal oversight, and the Home Rule Act of 1973 gives there kind of a limited self-governance where there is federal oversight. In a context like Chicago, that would be much more difficult, I think, to do this sort of thing because you have you have a Democratic governor, you have a Democratic mayor, and you also have different laws that would be governing that situation. D.C. is really the outlier there when you're talking about the way that it's structured legally and administratively.
All right, a lot developing here. Dr. Casey Myers, we appreciate your insight this morning. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.